What is up, fellow nerds, and welcome back to the Dapper Snapper Gaming channel, and welcome back to How Do I Want to Do This? This is our series where we take a look at all playable options available to players in Dungeons & Dragons 5th edition, then we rank them on a scale of 1 to 10, and either build them or fix them depending on how they rank. Now today we finish up not only our talks on the Thief Rogue, but also just the Rogue in general, as we are moving on to Sorcerer, hopefully next week. It's a bittersweet moment, always moving from class to class, but you know what? We get to do some more fun and exciting builds as we move forward with some stuff we haven't really talked about before, which is great. Before we jump into this one though, make sure to leave a like on the video and subscribe if you haven't already. Also, make sure to share the video with your friends, and of course click the bell so you're notified when new videos are uploaded. Another great way to support the channel is by joining down below. You will get access to all of my build guides, both for the build subclasses and for any subclasses that I thought did not quite make the cut and ended up getting an improvement. You get a nicely formatted document, that kind of thing. Take it to your table, use, and it's really cool. And of course, there are also higher tiers as well. You would get access to my videos 24 hours early, which is a nice perk. You also get a shout out in my videos, and then finally the gold tier, which is still developing at the moment. But you get access to a special part of my Discord server, and of course, there are more perks coming very soon. Of course, to all of you here watching, I really appreciate you being here. Let's jump into it. So the Thief Rogue is fun. While bland, it is a lot of fun, and I think that this actually gives us a nice balance of simplicity while also being effective, and I think that's great. I think that really helps this thing be really nice for beginners. It's a very beginner-friendly rogue, and you really need that, right? You've got things like the Champion Fighter, and then you've got things like this that are more on the simple side, but still very effective and can let you do really cool things. Today I'm hoping to really push that a little bit further with some very light multiclassing, much lighter than what I normally do, which is nice. But I think that it can really add to the class and help us to do some really cool things. So let's take a look at what I've come up with. Of course, here are the rules on the screen for this series, and we will start off like always with our race. And man, I was gonna go with something different, but the comments on this week's ranking video, which is up in the iCard above, if you missed that, make sure to check it out before we build this subclass. There's a lot more detail than what I'm going to go into today. Man, the comments on that video were very adamant about what race it needed to be this week, and so we're gonna go with that. We're going with the Harengon. So if you looked at the comment section at all, it was basically every other comment was, the Harengon is the best for this, the Harengon is the best for this, and you know what? I agree. I think the Harengon is great. Now, originally this was different. It actually was a satyr originally, but I did switch that out, and we'll talk a little bit more of why I chose the satyr when we get to the honorable mentions. But I think that the Harengon works great here. Hair Trigger especially is a really awesome feature, especially combined with the 17th level feature, which we will get on this build. We will get to Thief's Reflexes. We're not multiclassing enough to lose out on Rogue 17, so don't worry. Rabbit Hop is also cool because that's also going to be boosted by our second story work, which is great. Gives us a mobility option. Lucky Footwork is not bad at all, really fitting for a rogue. And Leoprine Senses aren't bad either. I think that extra proficiency is always going to be nice, because when you get that as part of your race, that's adding on top of what the rogues already get. That's adding on top of what you get for your background. And that just gives you more options to throw expertise onto later. So I think that's really awesome. Definitely the best option for us to take here. For our stats, of course, we're using modified standard array, and of course, if you are using something different at your table, you may need to modify these stats as needed, but just as a rule, go from top to bottom and you should be fine, just adjusting ASIs if you need to. So for our top stat, we're going to be taking dexterity, pretty normal there. Next up, constitution, and third, intelligence. Very strange that we're going intelligence, but you will see why a little bit later, but we do need a 13 in intelligence, and then beyond that it really doesn't matter. Wisdom is probably our best next pick, just for wisdom saving throws, and then charisma and strength really don't matter, so do whatever you want with those. For our bonuses, because this is from Monsters of the Multiverse, I mean originally it's from Witchlight, but because we are looking at the Monsters of the Multiverse version, this can either get 3+1s or a +2 and a +1. I'm going to go +2/+1 because we are going to be taking a half feat or two later. And so that'll line up a little bit better for us. So an odd number left in our dexterity and an even number in our intelligence moving forward. As for our equipment, while the ranged rogue works great with this subclass, I'm going to go with a melee rogue. And yes, I've done a lot of melee rogues. Actually, I've done 2 in the past 2 weeks, actually. Both the Soul Knife and the Swashbuckler were both melee rogues, and I think it works out great there. Today we're going to be doing pretty much the same thing, but I have a reason. Don't worry, it's okay, we'll get there. But just know that you could just as easily do a ranged build, and it would work just fine. Light armor, of course, is going to be our best friend here due to our high dexterity, and of course, if you want to take a shield, you can. It is completely optional. It helps out with your armor class, of course, but you do not have to take it if you don't want to. So let's start taking some levels, and we're going to start off with Rogue. I don't think that we really need to go elsewhere as far as our starting point for this. I think Rogue offers us plenty. We get more skill proficiencies. We, of course, can activate our sneak attack right off the bat. We get expertise, that kind of thing. All of that makes sense to me for going first thing, and I don't see why we would want to delay that at all. And we're going to keep going with Rogue 2 and grab Cunning Action, which gives us a lot more options for our bonus action, which is great, which is going to further be boosted when we get Fast Hands at Rogue 3. I know we're kind of going through the first 3 levels pretty quickly, but I think building this core here is really important to making sure that our character goes ahead and gets an identity really established before we consider doing anything else. I think that Fast Hands is really nice, of course, expanding our options for our bonus action, which is always going to be a good thing. Second story work is nice, and of course it does combo well with Rabbit Hop that we got from our racial, which is also really good. Then we have Steady Aim, another bonus action option. I'll just tell you, we're probably not going to be using that all that much on this build, and you'll see why in just a minute, but it's an option if you don't have anything else to do, but I imagine you'll have something to do on your bonus action. Then at level 4, we are going to go ahead and multi-class, and it's probably not what you think. Most of the time, you would probably think, okay, he's taking intelligence, he has a focus on using items as a bonus action, that kind of thing. He's going Artificer. No, we're not going Artificer because I don't know why. Artificer actually isn't bad, and we'll talk about why in the honorable mentions, but no, we're going Wizard actually because I want to. Wizard is really a fun multi-class here, and yeah, it makes hardly any sense. Yeah, we're a sneaky, thieving book nerd, and it's funny because I want to, so that's what we're doing. So yeah, we get spellcasting and arcane recovery as a wizard 1, and so we're going to go ahead and get access to a bunch of spells. We're going to get a few cantrips, and we're going to get quite a few first level spells, which is awesome. For cantrips, you already know we're taking Booming Blade, and normally we kind of skip over this one, but Green Flame Blade also is not bad to have. I honestly would bring both. I think that Green Flame Blade offers us a really nice option because of what we can do with our items. Things that are flammable that can be thrown on the ground could be great, and then Green Flame Blade combos with it and sets things on fire. This is a great combination that I think works really well, so definitely bringing both is the option to me. For our third cantrip, it really doesn't matter. I'd probably go Prestidigitation just because that's a really good utility, do whatever you want kind of spell. So that makes a lot of sense here. For first level spells, our list is massive, but there are some obvious ones that I would definitely take. Things that take our reaction are going to be really, really great because our bonus action is going to be accounted for most of the time. So bonus action spells, probably not going to be our best friends in most cases. So I would take things like Absorb Elements and Shield. These things are great. Of course, Absorb Elements works out even better for us because of us using our melee weapons and that kind of thing. Just gives us a little more effectiveness with that. And of course, Shield being able to bump up our already pretty decent AC. So that's already great there. Silvery Barbs is another huge one as a reaction. You just make somebody re-roll and then you give advantage to a buddy. Always a great bring here. Some people ban this at tables, so make sure to ask before you just write this down. And then we talked about the flammable thing. Grease is another great option that works really well in this scenario, so definitely consider that. And finally, find familiar. You already knew that we were going there, and it just fits too well for us to be able to do something like this. And this gives us a little owl friend that can fly around. You take the help action and give us free advantage on our booming blade attacks, which is great so that we don't have to necessarily worry about whether or not we have sneak attack, and that's awesome. So definitely take those. Of course, you've got room for a couple others. Just pick your favorite, whatever you want to do there. Then we're going to take Wizard 2, and we actually get our subclass at Wizard 2. I know we haven't covered Wizard yet on the channel, but we will in several months, but we'll get there. And so we actually go ahead and get some subclass features here. And it's interesting because the Wizard has a lot of different directions you can go. You can choose one of the schools of magic. You can choose different types of magic that are based on the Kryn, which is, of course, Matthew Mercer's type of setting. And then there's also a couple others that are kind of doing their own thing. You know, the Blade Singer doing its own thing. It was originally locked to certain races, and now it's unlocked, and now it's OP. There's all kinds of amazing options that you can go with here. We're going to go with one of the OGs and go with a School of Magic. And what better one to choose than the School of Conjuration? The School of Conjuration is amazing because not only do we get Conjuration Savant, so we can put conjuration spells in our book easier. Not that we're going to use this all that much, just because we're not going to get access to very high level spells, but Minor Conjuration absolutely is a great thing because this means we can create objects in our hand as an action. That also means that these are things that we can create and use as a bonus action with fast hands. And I think that that combination is really, really nice. You don't want to mess with thieves' tools, but you saw the key that actually closed up your jail cell. Just make one for yourself. You just go bam, and it's in your hand. That's pretty awesome. Now, I did, of course, consider going with something like the Creation Bard as well. Again, we'll talk about that in the honorable mentions, which does something similar, but I feel like you're missing out too much by going with the Creation Bard, whereas I think with this one, because it doesn't scale as well, I don't think you're missing out on nearly as much. So that's why we went with this route, and plus, I'm a fiend for wizards, so that's just me. So that's really cool. And then we're going to go back to Rogue. That's right, we're not even getting second level spells yet, but for now I think it's best that we go back to Rogue and scale this out for a while just to go ahead and make sure we're not missing out too much on the sneak attack damage that we would have been getting. Of course, Booming Blade is helping us to stay current with that. At our Wizard 2 level, that was level 5, so our cantrip did scale there. So, you know, we're still on track as far as that goes, but I don't want to get behind. So at Rogue 4, we are going to get our first ASI or feat, and Warcaster makes a lot of sense to me. This means that we can maintain concentration on any spells that we cast, and that's really good. You know, I didn't mention a spell that I would particularly worry about concentrating on, but you definitely can find one in the vast list that is the Wizard spell list. So definitely take something there, but more importantly is the ability to Booming Blade as a reaction, as an opportunity attack, which is great because that's basically guaranteed the double damage. So really cool there. Rogue 5, we get Uncanny Dodge, one of the best defensive features in the game. You want to just take half damage, then go for it. We've got a lot of things we can do on our reaction, which is nice. So if for some reason you don't have the spell slot available for something defensive, then you don't have to use it. Or if you just don't want to use it, then you don't have to. And you can just take half damage instead, which is really cool. At Rogue 6, we get 2 more skills that get expertise, which is awesome. Getting 4 of our 7 that we got built in, at least for most people, is really great. So I think that's really awesome there. Rogue 7 Evasion, yet another amazing defensive feature. There's definitely a rogue tank in here, and I didn't build a rogue tank really, or at least one that was dedicated to it. Of course, we built the rogue barbarian with the soul knife rogue, but I don't know if I'd consider that necessarily the tank version, but still really, really nice there. Great feature, helps us with our dexterity saving throws. Love that. And then Rogue 8, we get our second ASI or feat, and I want to round out that odd numbered dexterity, and the Piercer feat makes a ton of sense. Of course, this will work whether you're using daggers, whether you're using a rapier, any kind of piercing weapon, it's going to work for you. So definitely take that. It helps us to deal a little more damage consistently and helps us on a crit. And we're rolling with advantage most of the time, so we're going to get them a little more often than most people, which is awesome. Now that we are at level 10, I think that it would be nice that we go back to Wizard for one more level and pick up those second level spells, because Hold Person and Misty Step are really nice options. Definitely really cool. I definitely think that Hold Person is a very useful spell. Misty Step is kind of take it or leave it for me, just because we have a lot of other things to do in our bonus action, but free teleportation is free teleportation, and I kind of like having the option. It also helps us to get more spell slots, which I also appreciate. And yeah, so definitely consider that. And if you don't take Misty Step, take something else and you're still gonna be good. It's fine. So now we're going to go back to Rogue, and we're going to be there the rest of the way. Rogue 9, we get Supreme Sneak, which, yeah, I put that off for another level, but honestly, I don't think it's that big a deal. Getting advantage for free, essentially, on our stealth checks is great, and it allows you to forego things like Boots of Elvenkind, and so I think that's great. I think it's a cool feature. It's nothing that I'm like, I must get it immediately. There are plenty of 9th level features that are that way, but this is just not one of them, so we're kind of really working on the stuff for later. Then Rogue 10, we get another ASI feat, a little bonus for being a rogue, and I'm going to take Fighting Initiate for the dueling fighting style. Now, there are a few that work here probably better, but I want that extra free damage, right? We're dealing a little bit of damage every time we attack. I want some extra. Might as well. We're only holding one weapon in one hand. Even if you're holding a shield in the other hand, dueling still fires, and that's great. I really like that. At Rogue 11, we get Reliable Talent, which is just going to help our skills be even better. We're even more of a skill monkey than we were before, and that's always going to be a good thing. Then Rogue 12, our regularly scheduled ASI or feat, and Resilient Constitution makes a lot of sense here. You could go with something else, honestly, but I think that this works out the best for us just because we could be maintaining concentration on something. We do have advantage already from Warcaster, but having that higher score is nice, plus it helps out with our hit points. That's never going to be a bad thing. At level 13, we finally get Use Magic Device, which allows us to ignore all of these crazy restrictions. And what's interesting is because we're getting this so late, we're probably running into some insanely powerful stuff at this point, and it doesn't matter that we're only a Rogue 13. It matters that this is an insanely powerful thing that we can ignore all restrictions of. That's all we care about, and I really like it, so I don't feel nearly as bad about it being delayed in that way, because now's when you're going to be getting all of the crazy stuff here at level 16, which we are now, and beyond. Level 17, of course, we're going to grab Blind Sense, Rogue 14, which is nice. Again, as a melee rogue, this is a little bit more applicable. Helps you to be able to spot those that are around you that are trying to be sneaky, which is never a bad thing. I definitely like that. At Rogue 16, we'll probably just take an ASI, whatever you're feeling there, either Constitution or Intelligence, whichever one you want. I'd probably go Constitution, to be honest. I think that's a little better. The Tough Feat also works here if you're just worried about the hit point total. So plenty of options there. And finally, level 20, Rogue 17, Thief's Reflexes, one of the best skills that we can get. It gives us 2 turns on the first round. That's really cool. Really effective, and definitely something that every rogue would want to have. Definitely allows you to have up to 3 sneak attacks in one round of combat, which is cool. As long as you can set up a reaction attack with, maybe if you have a buddy who's like an order domain cleric or something like that, or if you just make an opportunity attack, that also can work there. But obviously that could be a very specific situation. And at level 20, I don't know how much you're going to be dealing with that, so we'll see how much that comes up, but still very cool. So that is our build for today. I hope you all enjoyed. I think it's a fun way to send off the rogue. We get to be a thief, we get to have the fast hands, we get to also, though, do some magic and be a book nerd, and I think that that's funny. We can be somebody who steals books. And I think that's funny. I think that's funny. So definitely feel free to flavor that however you want to. So let's take a look at some honorable mentions, things that almost were, and we're very close to being what were. Yeah, that's definitely how that works. So of course, like we said, other classes, Artificer was kind of at the top of my list, and more specifically the Armorer. The Armorer works great with Rogue just because your lightning launchers do count for sneak attack, and so that gives you an awesome way of dealing damage with really good damage and a good damage type, honestly, which is cool. So I definitely like taking that option along with the ability to create magic items, and that's huge, especially with fast hands. Definitely a lot of potential with that. In the same vein, the Creation Bard, like what we said earlier, being able to create a lot of different items. The only problem with Creation Bard is that I want to take more levels of Creation Bard because of what you can do. I think that Creation Bard has a huge skill ceiling, and it's really limited only by your creativity. I think that's awesome. I think that it's definitely worth looking into. I think it's definitely something that could work, so definitely look into that. And finally, the Forge Cleric. So while you can't necessarily just create things from midair, you are somebody that creates things and really likes the process of creating things. And so I think that there's definitely an interesting dynamic to be had here of somebody that worships the forge, but yet you're also a thief, and maybe you steal materials in order to forge your own things and become better. I don't know, there's probably a story there, so definitely think on that one. Next up, for our race choices, of course we said the Satyr at the beginning was my second option. I think the Satyr works well because we do have a bonus on jumping, which works out well here. We also have some extra ways to attack. We have magical resistance, which is never a bad thing. So a lot is packed into that kit, and I think that that's funny as a rogue. I think it just makes sense to have that as a rogue candidate there. So definitely consider that. Next up, any elf, of course, works great here with something that is going to be getting advantage all the time and has access to sneak attack. So, you know, that one's kind of wide open and it gets suggested a lot, but if it works, it works, right? And then finally, I think the Rock Gnome works really well here too because of Tinkerer. The Tinkerer ability is what gives you these random little magic items that you can create, and you can definitely talk to your DM about expanding your roster and making more of these little toys, these little tools, and I think that you could really make something awesome come out of that situation just with a racial feature, which is cool. Then finally, other feats that we could have taken here, and honestly mobile works out well here. Yes, we are already very mobile as a thief rogue, but the mobile feat just adds on to it even more, and who doesn't want more mobility? The defensive duelist feature, of course, is fine. I'm not the biggest fan of it, but it does work well in this case, so definitely consider that. If you're going ranged, crossbow expert makes a lot of sense here as well, but be careful with relying on that bonus action attack because you are going to be using your bonus action for a lot of other things, so maybe this isn't the one to focus on for that purpose. And finally, Mage Slayer. Of course, we can go out there and take down all of those pesky magic users that want to get away from us. We close that gap as a rogue and then take them down, or at least knock them out of whatever spell they're concentrating on, which is really cool. So that is our video for today. Tomorrow we are posting our video against Gentleman Thomas. Again, we are week 4 of the LTM Pokemon Draft League, and it's a rematch from UNPL Finals, which is really exciting. And so definitely check that out. And then hopefully next week we'll be starting Sorcerer. I might take 1 week off, we will see, but most likely we will just go ahead and start Sorcerer next week, and I am looking forward to that. So until next time, stay safe out there, stay healthy, we'll see you later. Bye-bye.